is Monday, June the 9th, 2025. Welcome to the second hour of Mind Shifters Radio. Welcome, Mike.
Yay. Thank you, sweetheart. So we just completed, or at least it feels like we just completed, our 9-day Why Is This Happening to Me Again intensive at an absolutely awesome facility in Abingdon, Virginia, which we are going to use again in November to do a 9-day intuitive development. You know, if you listen to Albert Einstein, he says 90% of his work is intuition, 10% was intellect. And he talks about, I don't have his quote exactly, but the words go along the lines of, we have this servant called the mind, and we have this gift called intuition, and we've made a master out of the servant and ignored the gift. And so recognizing that what we call the mind is nothing but a reflection of content of carbon-based memory, and you've heard me say it 1,000 times, to heal, you've got to be out of your mind. Well, that's a literal truth, that you've got to be out of what the human being calls the mind in order to really, truly function as the human being that you are. And so I'm being quite literal when I say you got to be out of your mind. And so we're going to do a whole 9-day practicum on practicing that, on how to do that, on how to get reliable information. I mean, we'll include the why is this happening to me again, the forgiveness, which is part of how you collapse the mind. We'll include that as a part of the intensive, but the main focus will be on a practicum, just every day working with learning to gather information without reference to your senses, without reference to your intellect, and then get feedback on when your information is correct. So we're going to do that from the 14th to the 22nd of November. If you want to come and join us, that would be awesome. And beyond that, we were blessed over this last intensive. It rained almost every day, so our garden was just well taken care of, well watered. We didn't have to think about it at all, and we have at least 1 million, while I may be exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot, volunteer tomato plants. So we actually just decided down in the front of our house, there's a place that it's about a 8 to 10 foot wide strip of land that used to be lawn that we converted. There's a hill on the front of the house with some trees on it, and it's almost like it's separated, but it was lawn. And over the last 2 years, we covered that with cardboard and put soil on it and put some plants in it. But we just decided that we're going to take our excess 1 million tomato plants and plant them down there with a sign that says, "Neighbors, please come pick the tomatoes," because we just can't use the number of volunteer tomato plants we got. So that's kind of fun, kind of cool. And beyond that, I'm open to any conversation anybody's got. We will move in the direction of completing that lesson, What is the World, from A Course in Miracles. But before we get into it, if anybody's out there with a thought, a question, push that mute button and let's talk about it. What's on your mind? What's exciting in your world? Anything for you, Jeannie, that you're thinking about? I have been talking with Susan back and forth about the article that I wrote on ending war, and probably once I finish editing that, I will do a session on it. We'll go over it on the radio show. It's there's several things that are moving into it, being added to the article. So, and Wednesday morning at 10:30 Eastern Time, if you want to join us, Susan has a Mind Shifters support group that she's been doing for, I'm not even sure now, several years now. And so Wednesday, we're going to have a conversation. And she had brought it up to the group last week, and the group really wanted to spend more time talking about it. So I'm going to be joining them for that. And Jeannie, maybe you can put the information in the notes, or maybe we can put them in the chat here, so that folks know how to get to that if they want to join us at 10:30 Eastern Time. It's a Zoom session, so you just hit the Zoom link and join us. So we'll see if we can find that. In fact, do you happen to have it handy, Jeannie? If not, I'll look up while I'm talking, and we'll
I've
put it.
got
I'll
it
put it
and
in
I'll
the
put
notes.
it in there. I've got it.
Yeah, cool, awesome. Thanks, sweetheart. So nobody else has a thought for us, a question, anything you want to work on, anything you need clarity on? Come on, I want a conversation with somebody. Somebody, talk to me. Okay, if you're not going to talk to me, then I'll just go on and do a lesson. All right, if that's the way you're going to be. So we were talking about this lesson, What is the World? It basically says, it's the thing that informs us that what we call the world is nothing but a construct of our minds. And that lesson starts out very clearly and delineates what the course is talking about. The only location that forgiveness is needed is the world. And what is the world? The world is false perception. Right? It's just one simple sentence in that whole book that just tells you exactly where the error is and the error that needs corrected. So we went through that. If you want to pick that up, we spent some time talking about that on Friday's show. So you can go to our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and just put in a search term Michael Ryce, and then you can look at groupings of shows, which, Jeannie, are called playlists. And you can look under the playlists and you'll find Friday's show. We're working on getting all 5,000 plus radio shows. I don't know how many we're up to now, but we've actually got 2 volunteers. One that started way back in 2011 with our first show and has been converting those shows to video. And that doesn't mean we actually have videos, but the shows from all those years on Blog Talk Radio are what they call MP3 files or audio files. And to put them on YouTube, they have to be converted to video files. So there's a picture and then an MP4 so that you can listen to it on YouTube. So we have one gentleman that started way back when, and I'm not sure where he's at now, probably up to 2014 or something, 2015. And then there's another gentleman who volunteered who's going in the other direction and working backwards. So when they meet, all 5,000 plus shows will be on
Actually,
the YouTube channel.
Andre has gotten from January 2011 through August of 2012, and Sean has all of 24 and up to August of 23. And I've asked Sean to, instead of finishing 2023, to go back and do the shows for the comparison to AA and the
Right.
Recovery Wednesdays. Those all happened in 2014 and 2015
Right.
and 2016. And so it would be a while before either one of them would get to those. So I've asked Sean to go back and pick those special shows up and start
Cool.
working on them. So
and all the special shows that
they've
were
already
on
been
our
done.
archives, they're done and they're available. So, there are at least 20 or more shows where we went over full worksheet with someone. And so if you're really wanting to learn more about the worksheet process, and I'll say, before I understood the worksheet process, I literally worked with it full time. And when I say full time, I don't do this anymore, but back in those days, I was doing, 14, 16-hour days, 9 days a week. So I worked full time in that literally for 35 years to get to the point where I could understand what Yeshua was teaching 2,000 years ago about forgiveness. So if you didn't get it on your first try, or your second, or your 10th, or your 100th, that's okay. It's one of the challenges is there's such a deep generational pattern of fraudulent forgiveness in our minds, where we bought the Greek farm of, it's all your fault and you're the reason I'm in pain and I will let you off the hook. We believed that was forgiveness, that it's tough to even get the brain cells to fire through that to really comprehend what it means. So I suggest if you really want to make that tool, and it is, I will say without any reservation whatsoever, after 50 years of working in the field, it is the most important tool on planet Earth. Not because I'm involved in it. It isn't my tool. It's really clear. It came out of the mouth of a man named Yeshua 2,000 years ago. I just happened to be fortunate enough to sort of choose to work with it. And then in part, the other part of it was the universe sort of pushed me in the corner to stay involved. So, I feel very blessed that I did. But so I think there are 22, 23, 24 shows where either Dr. Tim or Ginny or I have walked somebody through a worksheet, and each circumstance for each situation is different. So there's a tweak here, a tweak there, a tweak here, a tweak there. And if you want to build the brain cells to really comprehend the whole process, then watch those shows, listen to them, pardon me. And or of course, we're here to do worksheets. So if somebody says, hey, I've got a challenge with doing worksheet and I need help, then this is the place to call and get help with it. Get your questions answered, your answers questioned, and we'll support you in putting that understanding together. So the world of false perception, the output of your mind, again, let's review the Harvard research, where back in the 50s, this is the most quoted research in psychological history. They took some people into a lab, wired them up, measured brain cell firings, and in a time frame where they could find or measure 10,000 brain cells firing, what they determined was that the max amount of data that could go into conscious awareness. If you think of it as a screen, there are 10,000 bits of data vying to get into 9 spaces. 9 bits of data was the max. The actual lab stats were 7 plus or minus 2. So a mind can, if we had someone that we said, well, they're really slow mentally, that would be the person who only had room for 5 bits of data to get into awareness, plus or minus. So on the plus side, up to 9 bits. So that's what the course is calling perception, the world of false perception. And then it goes on to say in this next idea, the mechanisms of illusion have been born instead. So mistakes become possible because certainty is gone, because our contact with the world of actuality has been superseded by this picture that's inserted between us and the world. And the picture is inserted by being painted by our brain on the inside of our eyeballs. And when we look at it, we've been tricked. We've been trained to think that we're looking out there. And whatever you think you see out there, you have never seen with your eyes, because you cannot see anything with your eyes. That's what the Course here is calling the mechanism of illusion. Literally, the eye is a one-way valve. I can no more look out through my eyes than, the eye is an antenna. It's a device that brings light in. Yes, it brings information carried on light frequencies into the eye. It's an antenna. And just like the antenna on my house, I can't pull the wires out of the back of my TV set and look up through the wires and look out around the neighborhood through the antenna. You can't do that with your eyes either. I mean, we've been taught that's what's happening, but it's not what's happening. If you want to take a deeper look at the principles behind that, it's a neuroscientist named Anil Seth, S-E-T-H, A-N-I-L, Anil, S-E-T-H. Does a beautiful job. Search for it on YouTube. It's a TED Talk, and he does a beautiful job of explaining what's really going on. And the Course does it as well in calling it the mechanism of illusion. And that this mechanism of illusion, once we set a goal, once we frame and set a goal in our minds, then our mind goes out and looks for evidence to back up what we're looking for. And if there's the slightest shred of evidence for that, though that which we're looking for may be totally and completely false, then the mind will hallucinate a whole structure painted on the inside of our eyeballs, and we'll believe it. That's where the certainty goes, and that's where the illusion comes in as a replacement. And then it goes on to say, everything that the eyes report is illusion kept apart from truth. As sight was made to lead away from truth, it can be redirected. Sounds become the call for the creator, and all perception can be given a new purpose by the one whom the creator appointed savior to the world. What is that one? It is the omnipresent active presence of love. And so what this lesson in the Course then suggests is follow his light and see the world as he beholds it. Now here they're talking about Ruka Kucha. In the Course, it has been referred to as in the masculine when it says he, but in the Aramaic, Ruka Kucha, which is defined as a feminine elemental force that undoes the effects of our errors and teaches us the truth. The Greeks translated that idea as the Holy Spirit, and here the Course is talking about what it also calls the Holy Spirit. But in Aramaic, it's gendered feminine. It says, follow her light. I'm gonna gender it as it's gendered in the Arabic. Follow her light and see the world as she beholds it. Hear her voice alone in all that speaks to you. Let her give you the peace and certainty which you've thrown away, that heaven has preserved for you in her. Let us not rest content until the world has joined our changed perception. Let us not be satisfied until forgiveness has been made complete. What does the completion of forgiveness mean? It means that every shred of data that I have gathered through my senses or from my power person dynamics or the training of my culture or my family system that's based in hostility or fear ultimately needs to be removed. And that's what they're talking about as being complete. What if you could not conceive? Let's say your challenge is always being frustrated or always being angry or always being picked on, whatever it is. What would it look like to live in a world where it is impossible? Even if you wanted to be angry, you couldn't do it. Even if you wanted someone to pick on you, what if you lived in a world where that was impossible? Well, that's the possible if you fulfill your purpose in forgiveness. And at this point, the lesson says, and let's not attempt to change our function. The function, while we're living in this separate state, if you listen to Einstein, he says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. And that's precisely what the Course says as well. If you're living in an optical delusion, then your work is to free yourself of that delusion. It's done through forgiveness. And so it's time for us to start to see through the eyes of the truth of who we are, which in Aramaic was called Christ. The word Christ is not the name of an individual. If you go back and you look historically, the word Christ represents, it actually means the buttered one or the anointed one. Those who awakened into spiritual being were called the Christed ones. So it's the name of an office, not the name of a man. Go back into the scriptures and look at it. It's Yeshua the Christ, not Yeshua Christ, as the culture has done it today. So what the Course is indicating here is that we've made up a perceptual word, a construct that is false. And what the Course is inviting us to do is to drop what we've made up and see it through the eyes of the mind of Christ in us, the eyes of love, so that what was made to die can be restored to everlasting life. So that's that lesson on the what is the world? The world is false perception. It is born of air and has not left its source. It will remain no longer than the thought that gave it birth is cherished. The mind converts thoughts into pictures. And if you think it, your mind will show you that it's true, but it won't be showing you it's true because it's true. It'll be showing you it's true because that's the way your mind works. Once you get that one, then you start deleting the stuff based in thought disorders and you return to the truth of who you are. And that's what we're here to support. That's what we're here to learn. That's what we're here to teach. Does that fit? Does that make sense? Does that arouse any ideas for anybody? If so, push that button.
Michael,
Yes, ma'am.
this is going to put a tiny monkey wrench into some
I love
of the
monkey
things.
wrenches. Go for it. Make it a huge one.
Okay, well, I've been reviewing old journals, and when I was a member of a cult, when I was a teenager, the minister told us his Bible, besides a version of the Bible translated by a German man, was a book called The Spirit World or something like that.
Right.
And in there, it said that the earth is a melting pot of very high souls, angelic souls, Christ-like figures, and souls who were coming directly from hell. And they had to work their way up because earth was a melting pot, offering great opportunities for growth.
Right.
And as soon as the souls got to a point of enlightenment or whatever they called it, they would go on to other lives in other places. And I know this is just an intellectual question,
Right.
but you talk about reaching every mind, heart, and being on the planet, and you talk about critical mass.
Right.
But in this theory, there's no critical mass because the feed is coming through the sinkhole at the bottom all the time. There's never going to be a point, according to this, there's never going to be a point where enough of us were on the side of keeping the active presence of love so that we can correct what's going on here. On the other hand, what you say,
I wouldn't. That makes no sense whatsoever to me. I mean, I understand maybe somebody had that theory, but that one doesn't make any sense. I mean, if we've got a sinkhole that is the darkest of the darkest of the darkest and the deepest, and enough people stand there as the light shining light into it, there's going to be light in it. And you listen to Yeshua, and Yeshua, he used a certain pronoun when he said, "I am the light of the world," referring to himself. And then he changed the pronoun. He said, "And you are the light of the world." So if enough people will turn their lights on, then that will be the end of the darkness, because darkness is not a presence. The mistake I hear that person making is darkness is a presence. Darkness has its own power. And, nobody has ever invented a flash dark where you turn it on and all the light goes out, because only the light is a presence. The darkness is an absence. And I would offer that however depraved someone is in their darkness, that is an absence of a strong enough field of the active presence of love to penetrate and bring awareness of truth to that individual.
And as soon as that individual reaches that point, that person will be replaced with someone. This is theory, and it's almost silly for me
Yep.
to even bring it up, but that
Yep.
person will be replaced with someone in utter darkness who also needs to be taught the light, and maybe they'll get there, but there's never going to be an end to the dark souls who are joining us on the planet to be helped out of that. So I know it's crazy to even bring it up. It's just
No, it's not crazy. I mean, it's a decent question to ask. Again, my take is the simple fact that that's like saying that, well, there's so much darkness in the world that the light could never put it out. But there is no darkness in the world. There is no darkness. There is an absence of light, but there is no darkness. We use the word darkness as though it's some sort of a positive, powerful force.
mhm.
And the truth is, there's no such thing. It's the absence of light that we call darkness. So if, as Yeshua said, a little leavening leavens the whole loaf, critical mass in physics, that a level of light, of critical mass, of the active presence of light and love is hit, then darkness is obliterated because every space is filled with light. That would be my take on it.
So it sounds as if any souls who haven't reached the privilege of being born here, because this place is too light, they couldn't join us at all. They're hanging around somewhere. They're waiting for somewhere to be born so that they can crawl their way out of Mount Purgatorio. Yeah, okay, you know, we don't have to pursue this. It's just Dr. Tim's been reading A Walk in the Physical about how humans choose on some level we're not conscious of at this time to come to Earth to grow, to learn, to have hard experiences in order to have experiences so that they can grow to the point that you're talking about. And it also sounds with him, what he's reading is if this planet will always be a spaceship for a mixture of souls, and as soon as the work's been done by some, they'll move on and others will come, and the darkness is going to be part of the lives of people on this planet always because of the nature of the purpose of this planet. Anyway, I know I'm taking you off your course, but
No, it's not off course at all. No, I hear you. And my offering would be that when we talk about, you know, people choose to come to the Earth, I don't think somebody looks through the cosmic catalog and goes, let's see, Mars, Earth, the Sun,
no, he
the
would say
Moon, where
that
are we going to
too.
go? Choice there would be as we engage in energetic patterns, we will find ourselves in league or in resonance with others who hold similar energetic patterns.
Mm-hmm.
When we realize that we actually have choice, that we can introduce something new, and the option for the light is there because I can see it. There are enough beings tapped into it that it's no longer a tiny little hidden, you know, tenth of a flame of a candle, but rather the light is so effusive that it's available everywhere. Then I think the choice then becomes obvious that that's when real choice comes in. That's when that real faculty of choice happens rather than just floating along with the decisions of the past. And we're just walking each other home.
Does anybody else want to say anything about this? Because I don't
Yes,
feel
me, of course. Is that
Go for it,
Susan?
Celinda. Welcome, young lady.
Hi, twin sister. Of course we have something to say. Michael, I think you walked right through the both and beautifully. Thank you.
Say it again.
It's not either. It's not
Say that
either
again.
or.
I didn't, Celinda, I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah,
That I walked through
I
what?
said
I didn't.
both and instead of either or.
Oh.
You walk through both and beautifully. Thank you. You know, I'm
Cool.
learning more and more to get out of either or. It's either this or it's that. I mean, that's the left brain. I mean, the conscious brain, the little 5 to 9 bit brain.
Yeah.
And
Gotta
sometimes
be out
I
of your
wonder
mind.
about the 5 bits. So I'm just exploring that, and I'm just lapping up Christian Sundberg, and I'm just lapping up every perspective that comes down the line because I keep asking Ruha if, you know, to be shown. Yeah. And so, hey,
Cool.
and I can wait to eternity to get the answer, however long it takes me to grow those brain cells. Who cares? If I come through this planet again and again because I've asked to be shown more constraints, constrictions, and contractions in order to grow, okay, maybe I don't want to have them right now. Okay. Like Dr. Tim says, what's God's response? Okay, I have eternity to wait. There's no past, there's no future, there's just now. I'm trying to get that in my body because my body is what's driving the bus. The subconscious need to survive.
The body's mind. Yeah.
Yeah, the body-mind is just like it's driving the bus. Okay, it's driving the bus. And I think I'm the navigator, ha-ha, but it's really Ruha, and I'm just the passenger here co-creating, putting my input in. I think my husband, I'm going to sign off for a minute because my husband is very patiently waiting over here. I'll be back.
Cool. All right. Take care.
And
Sally, you had a thought for us?
she'll have to unmute again.
Yeah.
No thought.
No thoughts? Oh, okay. We thought you had your hand up. All right. Well, anybody else have a thought for us? Anything exciting happening in your world? Anything to share with us from what's happening in your world?
Well, I'm just going to throw in how over the last few weeks, you have become favorite papa around here with the little boy.
Yeah, we've been having fun with our grandson. He's pretty awesome. And he just reaches out and grabs me and slobbers all over me and pulls my hair. And it's delightful. So just a couple of other thoughts then to maybe stimulate some other input, talking about the darkness that some believe is some have presented as a viable alternative to the light. I think my take is that when we allow the fear filter, remember we've talked before about this thing called Rahma. In the Aramaic, there's an idea presented that exists nowhere in any language that we've heard come from the Aramaic, from the Greek, the Latin, English language. But when they asked Yeshua what was most important in the law, he said, not love God, love neighbor as yourself, but rather have Rahma for the Creator, for your neighbor, and by so doing, you maintain yourself. And where that leaves us is recognizing is that there are 3 basic filters that are active over the human mind. One of them is fear, one of them is hostility, and the other is Rahma. Now that's over, and there are actually 2 sets of these filters. One over the frontal lobes of the brain, which is where intentions are stored, and a set of them over the back of the brain where perception is stored. If fear is the active filter, then the intentions available from that storage device called carbon-based memory will be that which is negative. If hostility is the active filter, then the only intentions available to the mind with hostility in it will be those that are destructive. If one understands or has any idea of what this thing called Rachma is from the Aramaic, it is a filter over perceptions in the frontal lobes of the brain that allows only intentions that are keyed to love to be available to awareness and for use as the raw material of our goals. Really important what the quality of your intentions are, because they're the building blocks of goals, and goals are what drive perception. Goals are what drive behavior. Goals are what drive the mind. So we have this raw material. Many have attributed a great deal of power to intentions, and intentions have no power. They are just raw material. My partner in the Cabour's manuscript project, Dan McDougald, had a favorite saying about intentions. When people wanted to talk about and write books about the power of intention, he would say that an intention can no more move a muscle than a shadow can carry a stone. Just not, there's no power there. It's just data. Where the power is once you determine the quality of your intentions, then you've determined the quality of your goals, and now another set of filters come into play. And that set of filters are the filters over perception that determine what the quality of units of perceptual memory available are going to be, informing your mind's construct about a particular situation or circumstance in your life. So if the mindset is one of fear, then all of the data available from this multi-generational database, which includes everything stored in your, what we call your body's mind, and everything stored in your genes, if fear is active, the only intentions of it, or pardon me, the only perceptual data available, the only information available for building the construct of your mind will be that which is threatening. So you will look at any object of attention if fear is active, and it will be threatening to you. You know, we've all heard the insane, sad story about the 6'6", 280-pound strong man who just cherished his little child to the max, and one day canceled the thought, shook that child to death. What happened? He looked at his 14-pound child through the filter of fear and was threatened. Yes, by the child, and went berserk. Because that's the only quality of data that's available for building perception, and perception for most people is what guides their behavior. If the hostility filter is active, then the only quality of perception that the mind can build is that which is irritating. So you watch somebody, they go from they're enraged at somebody because they're irritated, and then they're terrified of somebody in an instant when they change filters. You know, let's do a little longer example. We've all heard about the woman who was abused in her home. You became the angel savior that assisted her to get out of that home and get into a safe shelter where she was protected and taken care of. Threatened no more. 2 weeks later, what did she do? She went back. After being perhaps beaten within an inch of her life, she went back. Why did she go back? Hostility and fear had decayed away. And when I talk about decay, I'm talking about energetically had decayed. You know, uranium decays over time, it weakens. So the hostility and fear filters decayed over time, and she could not see anything threatening or irritating about this person who had been her abuser. All she could think of was, I love him. She went, and when you said to her, well, why did you do that? I love him. And she went back. It perhaps didn't take her 2 minutes to remember why she had gotten away, but she could not remember. She could not build a perceptual construct through the Kuba filter, data based in love about him, to even recall why. Oh, yeah, there was some sort of memory recall, but it was not visceral enough to stop her until 2 minutes after she got in the house. And then, because her hostility filter was up, she could only see data that showed her something irritating, and she took him apart. These filters are urgent to understand. So a mindset of fear and hostility in the way of ancient language, that mindset of fear and hostility would be, in that language we call the spirit that confounds words and thoughts of the minds and then traps us in this construct of either the fear or the hostility-based mind. The objective of this work is to free each individual from anything based in any form of hostility or fear. That literally Rachma, that filter over intentions, it is literally the set of love, and it's based in the literal breath of the Creator. You know, when they said in the Aramaic, they spoke of the creation, and the Greeks told us that God sent out his spirit. It doesn't say that in Aramaic. It's much more imminent. It is literally your breath. Your breath is literally the breath of the Creator. And you'll notice most people, when they're in some form of hostility or fear, cut themselves off from that breath. And in cutting themselves off from that breath, leave themselves in trauma. And so through forgiveness, we can literally, each time you utilize the tool of forgiveness, you weaken or you cause the energetic impact of hostility and fear to decay, to weaken. You shave off its impetus and its strength with forgiveness until it becomes a faint voice rather than one that runs your life. And by engaging in the tools of, well, all of the above, you know, the tool in the intensive that most of you have been to, of just that simple love exchange, strengthening your experience of yourself as the active presence of love and extending that to another person, or extending that to yourself in the mirror, or extending that presence of love within your own physical structure to the part where there is pain, where there is trauma. And by entering the practice of literally bringing in the active presence of love, by focusing on that and developing that skill, love, being the master solvent for trauma, dissolves, removes, and produces healing on a tissue level. So freeing oneself of fear and hostility, understanding the laws by which the mind operates, one enters a different world. And so that's what we're here to support, understand, and engage. And I hope that makes sense to everyone.
Michael,
Yes, sweetie.
you might want to mention to people what we're going to do next Monday on the 16th.
Have we cleared that?
Well, we will be using our sign-in to do 2 hours.
Right.
So we won't be
Okay.
interfering with Dr. Tim's out.
Okay, cool.
Dr. Tim's not going to
so-
be doing a show starting
Right.
this Friday going through the 23rd.
Right. So Dr. Tim's going on vacation on Friday. And because of the nature of his vacation, for the next 10 following days, Jeannie?
No,
Is that
it's
correct?
this Friday, then all next week, and then the next Monday. So it'll
So
be
7
5,
days
6, 7
starting
days that
Friday.
he won't do a show.
7 show days he won't be doing a show. So what we're going to do next Monday, just because so many people have asked about the still point breathing process, and people who haven't been to an intensive, what we're going to do is we're going to start our show at the same time as Dr. Tim would normally start, at noon Eastern time, and go till 2 o'clock. And we're going to guide everybody through a still point breathing session. So if you want to do some still point breathing with us, make sure to put that on your calendar for next Monday at noon Eastern time. And be in a space where you can comfortably lay down, whether it's, you've got a bed available or a couch or, a mat on the floor, whatever. And that you can, if possible, it would be helpful if you can train your camera. On a monthly basis, we do a Mind Shifters and Still Point Breathing Club where we do still point breathing once a month. And what we ask everybody to do is to have their camera set up so that we can see them lying down, especially see them from the waist up to the throat, so that we can assist and support and give directions for still point breathing. So now that we're on Zoom, we can do this. And
we will not publish that one as far as the video on YouTube.
Yes.
We'll just put a standard picture of Michael and I on the video for YouTube. So you don't have to worry about the world seeing you breathing.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want to mark your calendar for a week from Monday, we're going to do a 2-hour still point breathing session, and there'll be space for conversation. And depending on the kind of processing that happens, we may not even publish that one at all. We may just put that one on hold. But mark your calendar and join us and breathe with us next Monday. And in the meantime, we'll hold blessings for Dr. Tim on his, I'm not sure what his travel plans are, but just extending blessings in his direction. And his journeys are sweet and rewarding. And of course, traveling through the world, a blessing to the world. Wherever Tim's going, I don't know.
He said that he is actually going up to visit with Guy Finley. And
Oh,
then he's
cool.
going to visit the area where he lived for 5 years after college. And
Oh,
so
that's cool.
Yeah.
I would love to go spend some time with Guy Finley too. That would be cool. He's doing some good stuff. Sweet.
We've got 10 minutes.
So what's on your mind, everybody? 10 minutes. All you have to do is push 1, and we'll be having a conversation. So what do you think? Well, if there are no thoughts, then I'll go back to this idea of the filters. And I would offer that fear and hostility are a pathology in the human mind and body. When we face and forgive hostility and fear, our pathology has disappeared. And what that means is that we will, in terms of the world generated by our own minds, live in a world, Yeshua, in the Aramaic or the Greeks, you hear him talking about the peace that passes all understanding. Actually, the word that was used there was serenity. A person who does the work we're talking about and takes responsibility for, turns in their membership card to the One World Universal Religion of Blame, who every time their mind is in their own pathology, talks about somebody else, they start talking about themselves and they start cleaning it up. I can remember for me the point where it occurred to me that my own hostility, my hostility was my mental illness. Though I could talk about others, I had to start to realize that was my mental illness before I could start to clean it up. Fear and hostility are mental illnesses. And when we are stuck in those mental illnesses, the filters of fear and activity and hostility are active. And therefore, we're either in that place of negativity or destructive energy. We're in the place of irritation and threat. And that leads to pathology in behavior. Once we clean it up, Yeshua gives us the example of a mind that has been cleaned of its pathology. He shows us how traumatic it can be. He's in the Garden of Gethsemane and he sweats blood. That's a healing crisis, folks. That's what healing looks like. He steps out of the Garden of Gethsemane, and there's the high priest servant has just been attacked by Peter. And Yeshua calls Peter Satan and says, "Get out of my way. Get out of here. Stop it." He tells Peter what he means by calling him Satan. He says, "For you think in the mind of pathology. You think in the mind of man rather than the plan of God." And then, instead of continuing the pathology of the world, i.e., here's the archenemy, the high priest servant, let's sock it to him, what does Yeshua do? There's no pathology in him. There is no hostility or fear. It's interesting, there's another passage where in one of the, I forget which one, I think it might have been Thomas or Philip or one of them, but Yeshua is facing the Pharisees, and the Pharisees are all over him, and the disciples say, "Well, why don't you sock it to them? Why don't you give them back some of their own?" And Yeshua, in essence, it's quoted to have said, "I have none of that in my story," saying, there's no pathology in me, so how could I have a pathological response to them? That's what happened in front of the high priest servant. That's what he came to demonstrate for us. Here's how it doesn't, my behavior, he says, I'm in this world, I'm not of it. My behavior does not depend on how the high priest servant acts or who he is or what he's going to do. My behavior depends on who I am as a human being. And having eradicated pathology, hostility, and fear from my mind, the only thing I can do is reach out toward this person who, yes, the world is going to look at him and call him the archenemy. And the only thing I can do, because there's no pathological response in me with which to reach out to him, is I can only reach out with active present love toward him. I've healed my mind, he says. So now I reach out to the high priest servant and I heal him. And I've had people who say to me, well, Michael, that's really an interesting interpretation. Sounds kind of stupid, but it's an interesting interpretation, because you'll notice that doing that got him dead. And I say, yes, I noticed that doing that got him dead. But did you notice they couldn't keep him that way? My offering is that's what he came to teach. It's that one who lives, one who takes responsibility for and heals their own pathology. Freed of pathology is freed from the cause of death, because it is pathology that causes death. And the primary pathology of death is hostility and fear. Oh, no, Michael, you don't understand. It's bugs, it's bacteria, it's viruses, it's the buzzards. No. Let's create an imaginary scene. I have an acre of land. I go to one corner and I rope off a square foot on the acre, and I count how many fleas and flies and bugs and creepy crawly things there are there, how many buzzards there are around that square foot. And I go to the opposite side of the acre, diagonally the farthest point away, and I rope off another square foot and I count how many bugs and buzzards and creepy crawly things there are there. And the count is going to be essentially the same from one corner to the other. But if I take a dead rabbit and I put it on 1 square foot of that acre that I've roped off and leave the other without the dead tissue on it, and let's say it's a nice warm day, it's 98.6 degrees, and I leave the rabbit on that square foot for a couple days and I come back. If I go to the 2 square feet that I've roped off, is one of them going to have a higher count of bugs and buzzards than the other one? Absolutely. And 100% of the time, which is it going to be? It's going to be where the decaying tissue is. Hostility and fear are a pathology that decay the tissue structure in which they are stored. Who was it that said hostility does more damage to the device in which it is stored than to the object upon which it is poured? If you have a pathology, stop your denial. Stop having conversations about everybody else and how your life is all their fault, and start having a conversation about yourself. And not about how it's your fault. That's just a power person dynamic. If you go into that's another pathology. But start going into a conversation about, okay, so what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to heal? Oh, I have tools. Oh, it might get so intense that, like Yeshua in the Garden of Gethsemane, I sweat blood. It may do that. But you will overcome your pathology and you will heal. And that's the purpose of this work. And when you heal, guess what? Great, wonderful principle in the Course of Miracles. When you are healed, you are never healed alone. People around you start to heal. Because that bringing in that space of conscious, active, present love is literally bringing in an energy that permeates all of space. An energy that permeates all of time. And that's what we're here to support. That's what we're here to be part of. And we are deeply appreciative of the fact that you lend us your ears. Who was that said, friends, Romans, and countrymen, and lend me your ears? Well, thank you. Because by lending us your ears, you have literally grounded the energy that we're talking about, the energy of healing, wherever you are. So I see people from the Northeast. I see people from the Midwest. I see people from the Northwest, central part of the country. So we've got a good part of the country covered. Just by you listening, you set up a field that connects with the field we're working with, grounding here in Virginia. We worked for 30 plus years to ground in Missouri at Heartland. And as that field grows stronger, it becomes a viable option for more and more minds. And when you are healed, you are never healed alone. And we join you in that healing process. And thank you for joining us today. Remember, next Monday, get ready to breathe. Still point breathing. Blessings and lots